Welcome everybody to creating a vision statement for your career. I can't wait to get started. We'll give it just one more minute here to give our laggards a chance to get started with us. And spin up your chats, everybody, if you haven't already. Hello. We're going to be using chat a lot today. I don't really like talking at people. I try to avoid that as much as possible. And the more you participate in the chat, the more you are going to get out of it. It is how it is designed. So obviously don't share anything that makes you uncomfortable. And if you feel just like participating in your own way, full support, but just know that if you do choose to interact a little bit more, I don't know, it'll be more fun, honestly. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I might have to, if I seem a little bit distracted, it's just because I'm still admitting folks who are trickling in just a few minutes past the hour, but we're just gonna go ahead and get started here. And I'm gonna be sharing my screen with you guys today, just a little learning aid deck kind of situation. So let me just get all this at a good size for you. I never do, I like to hop around slides sometimes. So I'm gonna have it in edit mode here. All right. Well, I'm so happy to connect with everybody. Actually, before I share my screen and go, really dive into the material, I want everyone to kind of drop in a little bit. How is everyone doing? If you're here, talking about feeling like you're maybe disconnected from a vision statement or feeling called to revisit a vision statement for your career, often the symptoms that lead us to realize that this needs our attention are not the most comfortable. So if you could sum up how you're doing right now in one word, I want you to enter it into the chat, because also, you're probably not the only one feeling that way. It may be stuck, surviving, present. I love that. Grateful. That's a great place to be. How else? Uncertain. Yeah. I've actually had a little bit of anxiety lately. I've had a really well managed anxiety for the last couple of years since I discovered a lot of the stuff I teach in my program. But I feel like there's a little bit of reintegration, a little bit of the uncertainty with the Delta variant that's maybe got us feeling a little on edge. So that's kind of where I'm coming from today. Misaligned, lost, confused, tired. Thriving some days, lost on others. That's the roller coaster, isn't it? Unsure. Yep. This makes a ton of sense, guys. And I really appreciate you sharing this. I hope that if we could all just together, wherever you're sitting, see if you can get your feet on the ground or whatever, if you're sitting on the ground or whatever, see if you can connect to the sensation of the points of contact to the earth or the floor underneath you. And I want everyone to just feel that support. Maybe close your eyes for a second. We can take a deep breath together. And if you're watching the recording, you're here with us, feel that support both around you from all of the people who maybe just shared an emotion that you're feeling. Maybe you're feeling a couple of these things. Maybe you felt them all before breakfast. That happens some days. And I really want you guys to feel this sense of support and just how alone you aren't today as we're going through this very natural process that we kind of actually have to revisit every couple of years. Our vision statements for our careers tend to be durable on a 10-year time horizon. We'll get into other, success components for writing a great vision statement for our lives. But it does mean that occasionally we notice ourselves being out of alignment and have to go through the process of coming back into alignment with our values, especially when it comes to our career. Things move really fast. So we're going to go through a couple things today, and I'll go ahead and share my screen now. All right. So today we're going to do an exercise in the art of possibility. A lot of times when we're feeling a little bit out of shape, a little bit anxious, lost, confused, we're really focused on obstacles, limitations, that kind of thing. And today we're just going to kind of bust things wide open a little bit together. So here's our agenda for the day. I'm going to really quickly run through an introduction of myself and the promises that I'm going to make to you guys for this session together. We're going to talk about why we fail to author a vision statement. It turns out there's only a couple reasons why in my experience. So we'll go through one at a time. We'll also talk about exactly what to do about it. We'll go over the components of a great vision statement, like the things that have to be present for it to be a worthwhile exercise. And then we're going to break out into pods of three-ish. And in those pods, in the breakout rooms, you guys are going to follow some instructions to get your vision statement started. And you're going to do that together, working through it together, talking it out, starting with your values. And then I'll try to run through this all as fast as possible, so keep up, because I really want to see if I can make as much time as possible for open coaching at the end. And we can talk about anything that came up, anything that maybe you felt stuck on, go deeper on something you're interested in, all of that. So to get us started, hi everyone, I'm Becca. I am the founder of a community called Fearless Femmes, which helps women and non-binary people in tech get promoted to leadership roles without burning out. And we don't stop there, right? From this position of deeply aligned influence, we're able to bring our values into the organization to reduce inequity, to expand the table, expand the circle for to increase access to people who, maybe just don't fit the mold of the white male-dominated tech industry that we see today. We're out here to change that together and do it in a way that gives us the kind of community support that, frankly, this enormous undertaking is going to require. And the way that we do it in Fearless Femmes starts with a vision, right? A vision that I just kind of shared with you, actually, to increase equity and justice in the tech industry and in product leadership in particular. From there, we set goals that will represent progress towards that end state. Right. And then from there, all of our strategies and tactics just become the logistics in accomplishing these goals for ourselves. So we do this for our careers in Fearless Femmes. This is actually a thing that we also use in the context of our product leadership roles as well. It turns out companies also need a vision and mission statement. And you'll notice the whole reason why we're here today is because if this top piece is out of alignment or not there, or frankly needs an update, everything that trickles down from it is going to be super problematic. So we'll get more into that in just a minute. First, though, I want to make a couple promises to you guys. Number one is I will not be asking any rhetorical questions today. If I ask a question, it's because I want you to answer in the chat. So please do that. You will get a ton out of the session the more you participate. Oops. I do have an authentic style. There may be a little bit of tough love today, but for topics like vision, hopefully not too much tough love. I do swear moderately though, so just consider yourselves warned. This is kind of how I present. It does also take into account who you guys are, what your issues are. I'm going to be asking a lot of questions about what's present for you right now, rather than kind of reading a bunch of generic crap off a slide. I'm really, really curious about how this is showing up in your life so that I can kind of talk to you off script about it. So that's the authentic style I'm talking about. I will give you all the help I can in an hour. This is not one of those things where it's like, oh, and by the way, if you actually want to learn how to write a vision statement, you'll have to pay me money and sign up. Like, you will leave this session with the beginnings of a vision statement and all the guidelines that we use in the program for real to create a really great vision statement for your life. However, if you do stay to the end, you will learn how to get more help if you want it. If you're interested in the Fearless Femmes program, that's something we'll talk about at the end. So, all right, the first non-rhetorical questions. Are you guys ready? Does your company have a vision statement? Yes or no? Do you feel like you know it? Does it feel good? Does it feel inspirational to you? Yes, exactly. So pretty much exclusively yes here. I think it is one of those things, especially in startup lore. It's now pretty standard guidance that that a company have a inspirational vision statement. Got a couple no's, got a couple I think so's here. So again, not a universal thing. However, pretty required for the company's long-term success. Why do you think that is? Real question. What happens when you have a vision statement? Align, head in the same direction, keep everyone moving. They know what they need to focus on. Absolutely. People need a North Star. That's, I think, the really beautiful way to sum it up. Everyone needs a why. When our day-to-day is disconnected from a why, everything feels kind of in a grind, right? Everything feels a little bit like a hamster wheel, because at the end of the day, even product leadership, you're sitting there writing Jira stories all day. If there's not a big why behind it, it's going to feel, it's something that you can easily burn out on. right? So keeping the big picture in perspective during tough tactical challenges, yeah, right? The inspiration aspect, I think, is really big, as well as giving people a sense of like, yes, here's what we're doing to change the world. So having this for your career is important for all the same reasons. It clarifies your priorities, as Chelsea put really, really well here. When you're trying to evaluate a job opportunity or a new role or a career change, I mean, if you don't have the parameters based on what you deeply, truly care about, what you're here to do, your why for having a job at all, you're not going to be able to make any like intelligent decisions, right? You're not going to be able to make those trade-offs. So what happens when you lack an authentic vision? Maybe some of you guys are feeling this right now. You feel lost, scattered, aimless. Losing momentum and focus is a huge one. There's churn. Maybe you pick something up and start it and it doesn't quite feel right because it's frankly disconnected from something bigger, right? And we do often lose sight of what's important. Namrata, you put that so beautifully. This is why we end up in a cycle of burnout. It's why we end up in roles that are wrong for us. It's why we often maybe start living someone else's life a little bit, maybe someone else's values, because if we haven't aligned behind our own with a pretty explicit vision statement, then gone through this exercise you're going to go through today, like whose life are you really living? It would kind of be accidental to have something totally aligned with your values. Comparisons, losing motivation. Yeah, all of these things are what happens when you lack an authentic vision. So that's why you're here today, right? Your vision, and this is sort of the working definition of why we do it in Fearless Femmes, it releases you from local problems and concerns and allows you to see the long, clear line. So again, for Fearless Femmes, I'll just give an example for my own mission and vision for the community that I've built and that I co-build with all of the other community members there. Our vision statement is to create a world where everyone feels able to access their creativity and have influence in tech and product. And ultimately, again, if I'm really blowing out the vision statement to be a little bit bigger, in every profession, everyone feels that level of psychological safety to be successful, creative, and happy. So again, big picture stuff. And trust me, when I'm feeling like when I'm working on my billing stuff, which I have to deal with, a couple times a month, the thing that keeps me going, doing that grunt work, is this sense of vision, right? So again, you can see the connection here. You guys know all this. You've seen it at your companies and you've probably had it in the past. So a couple reasons why we fail to set a vision statement. In 1 second, guys, I'm just gonna allow a couple people to enter the room here. Admit all, beautiful. So we're gonna go through these reasons one at a time for why we fail to set a vision statement in the first place, even though I think we all agree, we know we need to. I'm just gonna make things a little bit more compact here. Okay, so reason number one, and this is all stuff, every person who joins Fearless Femmes comes here with some version or combination of these reasons for why they've failed to set a vision. It's actually, there's not a ton of variance here. You'll likely see yourself in some of these points. Number one, before you put pen to paper, you start telling yourself your vision's impossible. You don't even give yourself a chance to sit and write it down. Your creativity doesn't feel safe expressing itself in terms of your desires, right? It's a big one. Anyone relate to that? You can either raise your hand or say me in the chat. Anyone struggling with that, like letting yourself, or stopping before you've even begun, right? Super, super common. See this all the time in femmes. Number two, you get started. Maybe you're able to sit down, put that pen to paper, but halfway through you freeze up with shame, self-judgment, just passing a lot of judgment on what you're writing. Is this too much? Is this the right vision to have? Right? Anyone relate to this? Is this, you may also suffer from this, or maybe this is uniquely yours. Yeah, again, super common. Again, I want you guys to really connect to how not alone you are in this world. This is what I see all the time. I've had these slides prepared in advance because it's just that common. Number three, you do what we call compare and despair. You look at what you've written, even though, if you've gotten through some vision, and you decide that it's not good enough. It's not enough. Anyone made it to that point where they look at their vision and say, but I'm supposed to want something different?
I don't know if we're allowed to talk or just chat.
But go for it. Chat's preferred, but go for it.
Yeah, my compare and despair is very much related to the first one, which is telling yourself it's impossible. Like when I'm comparing my vision, saying like, I want to achieve like, vice president or something like that. And I look at the people who are vice presidents and they've already been in leadership for like years and years. That's where it's not good enough. Or that's where I despair.
Absolutely. That comparison, right? Again, we're ultimately comparing our unique vision for our lives, what could be a unique vision to our lives, to somebody else's. Like, given that our deepest desires and values and how we could, live into those values is as unique as we are, comparing ourselves is just a recipe for despair, right? It's a just fast track to feeling not enough. And yet, of course, in our culture, that's what we're trained to do. The first thing we do when we're wondering how we're doing is looking over at our neighbor, right? So again, this is all deeply socialized stuff. I just want to call it out as like the reasons why that we have to bust through to actually get this job done here, because it is so important. Number 4, you get it done. Maybe you're even excited about it, but you get scared and overwhelmed by how big it is and you abandon it, right? So it could feel, rather than breaking it down into small steps, which again is how we, especially as product leaders, we look, every task that we take on is enormous if we look at it from that vantage point. Breaking it down into small steps is what we guide folks through in Fearless Femmes. That's the whole point. That's why people sign up for the program. But if you're stuck at this point where you get so overwhelmed and it's almost like something hijacks your brain and you bail on your own vision and go back to what you're already doing. Really, really common thing. Let's see, just catching on the chat here. Uncertainty. Oh yeah, not that you don't know what it is. So actually, that's a really good one. I left that out. I left this off of here, Allison. But for some people, they truly don't know what their vision is, right? Even regardless of how it looks in comparison to other people, or if you're supposed to want it. Not knowing what you like and what you want is a really, really common problem as well. And the reason why, I'll kind of like bounce back up here. Basically, within Fearless Femmes, we go through this whole process, starting with vision all the way down to like the logistics and metrics of your success, right? Things that are really important to you. The logistics and metrics, when you've done this upstream work, feels really good to you because it's, you know that you want it. However, the secret sauce with Fearless Femmes, this is worth noting, is that there is absolutely devastating emotional baggage at every step of this process. And so what we do in Femmes is we actually look at the deep set physiology of why we struggle to write a vision and develop techniques to work through that. A lot of it is physiological and honestly related to trauma. Burnout, by the way, is a super common form of work trauma. The reason why we end up in a position where we don't know what we want or what we like is because we have cut ourselves off from the signals that our body is sending. Because if we were to listen to those signals at our workplace, we have to ignore them to survive, right? So at that point, when we've been doing that long enough so that we can survive at work every day, in spite of our body screaming at us to slow down, screaming at us to stop, we can't really, what do you like? It's like, well, you can't get that signal through either, right? Multiple, just catching up with comments. So multiple visions and path, and picking one can be paralyzing, right? Again, like the idea that there's a right path, right? This is a really, really common block for folks. So yeah, so many ways to go. And again, like the frame shift that I'll offer to you guys, and we can discuss this more in your breakouts. It's kind of amazing to have multiple great choices, right? I want to remind everybody that if we can, once we move past some of the physiological anxiety of paralysis, which is a survival response, it's a freeze, right? It's the fight, flight, freeze, and appease response. It's one of those. If we can move past that, we're actually able to connect to how awesome all these choices are. And yeah, there's trade-offs. There's always trade-offs. But when you can connect back to that sense of safety and trust, then moving forward becomes really easy. All right, so back to it. Let's see, where were we? So what to do about all this. Awesome. Because you're going to have to break through some of this stuff in your breakouts when you actually get started on sort of the first step of writing your vision statements together. Number one, we befriend that inner critic. Not conquer it, not vanquish it, not overcome it. Very important distinction here. In Fearless Femmes, we befriend it. I'll describe why in a second. Number two, we're going to ask how instead of if. Like the vision feels really big, it feels really overwhelming. But if we focus on obstacles, then obviously we're going to continue to feel overwhelmed. We're going to practice asking how we could get that done, assuming that it is possible. And number three, rule number 6. I'll describe what rule number 6 is. It's my favorite. All right. So number 1 here, befriending your inner critic. What do we mean by that? How do you know that it's your inner critic speaking up? Actually, this is I have the tells here, so this is a little bit of a spoiler. Anyone care to share like what their inner critic says to them? Like, you know the lines. What does it say? You're not good enough. I mean, honestly, that's the be all end all. It's always some version of that. You're wasting time. Yeah. You just got lucky. Really, really painful stuff, guys, right? Like we would never speak this way to a friend. You'll look silly if you speak up. You're not good at this, why try? So hopefully you're starting to see some of these patterns, right? It's often sort of this variations on a theme of this is too much for you, you can't do it, you're going to fail, and that means that you're bad. If you're ever wondering whether or not something is an inner critic, there's a couple tells here that I want you guys to look out for. You should be doing that, or you shouldn't be doing that, right? To this, right? Like you are too much, right? This is too much, you're too much. Not enough, you're not enough, this is not enough. That's another big one. Urgency, the sense of urgency, the rule of thumb being that things that are urgent are rarely important and things that are important are rarely urgent, right? And then of course, compare and despair. Anytime we compare ourselves to others, you can be pretty sure that's your inner critic. That's your inner critic tuning in. But everyone's got their lines where I want to offer a new way of interacting with those lines, right? Rather than doing what you're probably doing, what most of us do, which is just listen to it, right? We listen to it, we let it inform what we do next. Here's what I want you to do instead. And I want you guys to practice this in your, we're gonna be practicing this in your breakout sessions. So please take notes. When we befriend our inner critic, rather than silencing it or shoving it down or believing it and being like, guess I can't do anything, guess I'm terrible, right? Guess I'm gonna give up. We're gonna ask a question about what this voice is trying to protect you from. Any kind of self-sabotage, right? Assuming that if we hear, just to pick one of these things, you don't know how to do this, you don't know how to do your job, that was a dumb question, right? If we, rather than listening to the words themselves, if we can actually take what we do in Fearless Femmes, and this is a thing we run constantly over and over again in our sessions together, what is the voice protecting you from? What does it allow you to do when you hear that inner critic and you don't take action? True question. You're avoiding failure. Change, vulnerability, scary shit, right? Like the experience of failure is incredibly unpleasant. Now, again, the best version of ourselves knows that failure is just learning and failure is required. There's ultimately no avoiding it truly. But this part of you is trying really hard to do you a solid and keep you playing small. Stay in the familiar, because you know what? Familiar keeps us alive. It's a very powerful, very primal instinct, and actually one that's working as designed. So all of this stuff that you've heard about, overcoming or conquering your inner critic, I kind of want you to consider throwing it out the window a little bit. The way that we've had massive success in Fearless Femmes in terms of just redefining our relationship with this voice is when we see it as this sweet, scared, but helpful protector, right? And instead of yelling at it or ignoring it or whatever, like yelling at or ignoring a screaming toddler just makes the problem worse, right? So imagine the inner critic as a screaming toddler, if that's helpful. Say thank you, give it a hug, tell it you've got its back, and then keep moving. This is something that requires some practice. A lot of your survival instincts are deeply ingrained, often from childhood, right? This is why in Fearless Femmes, we really address these deeper underlying issues together. But ultimately, this is the frame. This is what I want you guys to take home and start practicing, is befriending this inner critic. So let's see. How does this, so Melissa's asking, how does befriending your inner critic work with compare and despair? So so this is a great one. So I guess it depends on, it's a little bit different for everybody, but let's see if I can come up with an example. When you are comparing yourself to someone else, right? You're saying, oh, here's a big one that people who are just starting Fearless Femmes struggle with. They feel like they should be further ahead, right? They feel behind. That's the criticism, right? You're behind. You fucked up. Like you should have been doing way better work from now. You blew an opportunity, right? And all of that is like in direct comparison to like a friend or a colleague that you feel like you should be on par with. So so basically, Melissa, I think that the way to befriend that voice is to say, again, ask this question about like, okay, when you're comparing yourself to other people, what is like the soul of that kind of sweet but misguided attempt on your inner critic's behalf? For most people, it's about acceptance, right? If we can signal to others that we're as good as they are, right? Again, like something that I don't actually think is in line with your values. We don't evaluate other people as being good enough. That's something we reserve for ourselves. But if we see it as a move or a tactic for belonging, right? Like you are good the same way they are. You have the same skills they do, right? We love to equate ourselves to other people. Very, very sweet and very important aspect of for social animals, for community building, and for our safety and survival, right? If we get rejected, we might be left alone by the tribe or by the pack or whatever, right? So again, all of these are like deeply adaptive. The pinnacle of evolution is in this inner critic, right? So I really want us to go easy on it. However, again, consciously, I think we can move past it. We can say, oh, I see what's happening. I'm needing acceptance. I'm like looking for something to make me feel like I'm not going to be rejected, right? Or left behind. And then from there, you can ask, cool, how can I soften around this? How can I give that to myself without, because again, like the downsides of your inner criticism prevents you from getting the outcome that you're looking for anyway. So again, we're sort of looking for an alternate path, a pattern interrupt here that'll bring that highest conscious part of you to align behind what you do next, rather than being hijacked by this inner critic. Hopefully that answers that question. Happy to follow up more after. So number two, this is in the frame of what to do about all these beliefs and pitfalls that we tend to run into while creating our vision statement. We ask if something's possible rather than how it's possible. That's what trips us up. So instead, how about we ask if? Let's just entertain the possibility for just a moment that what you want is physically possible. For most of us, it is. We see other people doing it all the time. Get a promotion, get a raise, retire to Baja. All these things are just logistics, right? Focusing on the obstacles to all of those things happening, which yes, there are. There is a couch in the way, that I have to circulate around to get to, the entrance to my living room. Yes, there's an obstacle there. If I allow myself to focus just on that couch, I might not decide to overcome it to get out of the room, right? Again, like very, very basic stuff. Of course, there's obstacles for people who are gender non-conforming, non-white, anyone who doesn't sort of fit the norm of our culture has more obstacles. Absolutely true. However, they're worth overcoming to achieve your goals. If we ask how we get it done, suddenly our mind connects to the possibility of having this thing, and we're able to move through and just make logistics, kind of on the idea, on the principle that everything is figure outable. If it were possible, how would you do it? And then rule number 6. Rule number 6 is very simple. Stop taking yourself so gosh darn seriously, guys. Like, again, this is a little bit of a lighthearted, humorous approach, but boy, do we, we're in all of our sweetness really do treat a lot of this stuff as life or death. And this is not to say, this is not a encouragement to pass judgment on your behavior so much as an invitation to ask, what would happen if I did just take this a little bit less seriously? What if it weren't life or death? What if I saw the level of support that I actually have? What if I saw that are connected to gratitude for what I currently have? Suddenly our body kind of gets into a safer place to get creative and start thinking longer term and get to that place where we actually are creatively authoring an aligned, authentic vision statement for ourselves. So people often ask me, well, what's rules 1 through 5? The answer is, who gives a shit? All right, how to write a vision statement. Now we're getting rubber meets the road here, guys. So 3 major instructions here. And this is for, that I want you to take this home and you're going to continue what you start in our breakout session today. The basic steps are identify what your core values are. I highly recommend find any list of values. Literally just Google it, find the longest list you can find. It'll be amazing to see how many things on that list you don't value. And yours yours tend to leap out at you. Go with 3 to 5. Don't overcomplicate it. Assess your talents and activities you enjoy. Right? So in Fearless Femmes, we go through a pretty detailed talent assessment to kind of guide us there. We also get feedback from others, but you can do this on a very kind of quick and dirty level as well. Just asking yourself awesome, there's aspects of my job that suck. There's aspects that are not aligned right now, but what do I enjoy? What haven't I enjoyed in the past that I don't have anymore? Things like that, right? Again, confronting and owning our desires, especially for people socialized as women, tons of baggage around it, tons of trauma around it. This is more complicated of a task than it seems for most people. And then I want you to write an open-ended statement that answers the question, what if my life were perfect for me? Dare to dream it perfect. This is your task. We tend to get in our own head, get in our own way, start making concessions before we even begin. Catch yourself doing that and move forward. Dare to dream it perfect. That is your task. That's what success looks like. Your vision statement is uniquely yours because it highlights how your values show up in your life when it's perfect. So I'll give a couple of examples that from real women and non-binary people in Fearless Femmes who generously shared theirs. In my perfect world, and this is how you can start it, right? In my perfect world, blank. This is your vision statement. I have the flexibility to go on several vacations a year. I have a home that comfortably fits a growing family. I'm learning and growing and challenging myself. I'm recognized by my work and valued by people at work. I have enough money to retire early, which makes me feel secure every day. Really good vision statement. Question for you guys here. What values do you see? Can you pull or extract any values here? Security, nailed it. Flexibility, family, learning, beautiful. Recognition, growth, freedom, leisure, hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So you see how in a really natural flowing sentence structure, we've covered a huge number of her values, right? How about asking this question? Because this is a big one that I think we get hung up on in our culture, especially in tech. We're conditioned to believe that our work is a huge part of our identity. And for some of us, it is. And for some of us, it is for a while and then it stops, right? So work plays an evolving and shifting role in most of our lives. And when there's misalignment here, sometimes it's because we're putting too much emphasis on work, really common thing we see in femmes. So in this vision statement, what role does work play? Funds, vacations, yeah. Recognition, yes. So really being valued. I see a ton of soul in work being very central for this person, right? It is the context in which she is pursuing personal growth and learning and all of that. And it's she's got a ton of momentum in terms of financially with it. She's being challenged by it, and it's providing her some security. Work's pretty central here in this vision. And this is what she figured out. She was like, hell yeah, now is the time to run at my career. Informed a lot of choices and goals that she set downstream, right? I'll give it another example though. My marriage is central to my life and I have plenty of time to work on it, the marriage, and spend one-on-one time together. I'm active in my arts collective and I'm connected to the support of that community. I make enough money to live comfortably and support myself and my partner. First, let's do the values again. What values are you seeing here? Relationship, yep. Family commitment. Marriage, community, family, creativity, yeah, art, support, hobbies, and free time. Dynamite. So what role are you seeing work playing in this vision for this person? Yeah, it's a little balancing factor, right? It's enough. And again, this might change. Our vision statements, we want them to be durable, right? And so that's something that we do value. We don't want to be constantly rewriting these statements. But on a 5-10 year time horizon, this statement can be a huge guiding North Star when deciding whether or not to take a job that's going to really up the intensity of work time commitment. This person was going to be a no. And it was an easy decision, right? Because these values were really, really clear. So a couple components of a great vision statement. Number one, like I mentioned, it's durable, right? So here's what not to do. For example, a vision statement is not get a promotion to director next year, right? Because then you get a promotion to director next year and you have to reauthor your whole vision statement. Pretty short-sighted, right? Not really operating at that altitude. We want those goals also, right? So it's like, it's not that the goal itself is wrong, but it's not informed by a higher values aligned altitude of thought, right? And consideration. So we want it to be durable over time. No metrics allowed. This is just a really good rule of thumb. For example, when I'm sort of revising or reviewing vision statements for community members and FEMS, we usually just try to strip numbers away. Even rather than like 3 vacations a year, it's enough vacations a year to make me feel free. Make sense? So basically that number might change actually. You might need only 1 to feel free 1 year, and then another year you might need 4. The point is that you're evaluating, what do I need to feel the way I want to feel to be in alignment with my values? So no metrics allowed in a good vision statement. And then number 3, it describes having things you like. I know this might sound obvious, but again, like a lot of us end up in positions down the road, or a lot of FEMS arrive at the doorstep of Fearless of the Fearless FEMS program, because they've been hurtling towards signals of status or success or whatever that they don't actually enjoy, or maybe they used to enjoy and don't anymore, right? So again, asking very simply, what do I like? For me, it was talking about feelings, guys. That was guided me to start this career and transition out of product leadership. I didn't get to talk about feelings enough as a product leader, straight up. So now that's what I do all the time. And it's awesome. Highly recommend it. Number 4, it encompasses your core values. We already knew that. So these are the 4 components of a great vision statement. You're going to go meet some people right now and get started. So I'm going to put you all in groups of, let's see, we've got 20 minutes left. I'll put you in groups of 3. And I want you all to go through this exercise together. So I'll copy paste these into the chat so that you can all see them together and not lose them. In your breakout sessions, I want you to say hi. I want you to share what your name is and where you're from. And then I want you to pick 1 core value. We don't have time today to do the whole exercise, obviously, but you'll start with 1 core value and then just repeat this process for your other core values after, right? What's the most important core value for me? For me right now, I'm really focusing on connection. Huge value, huge value for me. And then I want you to talk through. So really, this is more of a talk through. See, this is why I keep this in edit mode. Talk through an open-ended statement with your partners that answers the question, what if my life were perfect for this value? So in my ideal world, connection is showing up in my life through new bonds with people in Brooklyn, because the pandemic kind of threw a wrench in developing friendships here. So I have plenty of time in my life, in my perfect life, to be having people over, like having people for dinner, going deep and really building those relationships. And hi, Michelle from Brooklyn. So really answering this question just for this 1 value, get everyone to say it. And then I want you each to ask, what's 1 thing you need to change to deepen your vision? And what this does is it kind of gets back to that pyramid I showed at the beginning of the session. We go through in FEMS, we start with that vision, right? I'll start with the why. And then we start to ask, awesome, what decisions will represent progress towards that goal for me? And that's what guides us into our goal setting modules, which we can't get to today. Of course, we don't have time, but if you're interested, that's a great way to, that's a great thing to use Fearless Femmes for. All right, so I'm gonna break everyone up into groups of 3. If you're not divisible by 3, then we'll figure it out. All right. 3 to 4 participants per room. All right, everyone, that you should be automatically just click accept and you'll be dumped into your room with your additional 3 or 4 people. I'll cue you through roughly, when people should be wrapping up their talking through of this exercise, and you can move on to the next person. We'll give you about like 2-3 minutes per person. All right, I will see you in just a little bit. Hey guys. Did you guys finish already? I wasn't sure actually how long it would take people to answer. Sometimes it takes a long time, sometimes it doesn't. So I figured it'd give us a little buffer.
Yeah, we were done.
Awesome. Beautiful. We'll give the folks a few more minutes. Lovely. Well, anyone want to share what their core value was that they surfaced for themselves? You don't have to, but I'm curious.
I can share. I'm just trying to figure out how I share my screen.
Oh yeah, because I have to
And-
enable it. I have to enable it, but it's like actually a little bit of a security risk to do it because I have to for everybody if I do that. And I don't know if I can disable it.
Yeah, don't.
Tell me,
worry
what
about
is
it.
it?
I was just being polite.
Yeah, okay.
My face. My name's Polly. The value I shared was freedom. I really value sort of freedom and flexibility in my life and my career. So that ability to kind of like choose my own schedule. If I want to take 3 months off and focus on something that's not work versus actually, picking stuff up when I'm at my most productive, that kind of thing.
Seasonality. That's what we work with in the FEMS program, is this idea that like, well, the steady grind that we're subjected to by our work culture is why everyone burns out, because we're not designed, like nature didn't design us for that. So it's a huge unlock to do what you're doing.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. It's sort of when I think about where I want to progress, it's having enabling that flexibility that's outside of the typical 9 to 5 and being able to be like, I have a season of actually not work, and maybe it's working on relationships or the house or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that recognizing yourself as a whole person.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it turns out we are, regardless of whether we recognize it.
Yeah.
Nature finds
anyway.
I mean, burnout is sabotage, right? It is our body sabotaging us so that we fucking stop. It's like it tried to tell us and we didn't listen. So now it's going to just take over and like really, really cause a lot of suffering so we don't get out of bed. Very practical thing when you think about it. But yeah, when I was working on figuring out like what the point of highest leverage was for the people in my coaching group, like the body and our physiology was just the like even this vision stuff is downstream from the body, it turns out. And figuring out like what our natural seasons look like is a huge and radical question to ask. So I'm really, really glad you're doing that.
Yeah.
All right, we'll give it just a few more minutes here. You said asking questions was your core value. Is that like learning? If anyone else wants to share their value, I'd love to hear it. Cool. They have 30 or 60 seconds to rejoin, so we're gonna get moving again.
I wanted to just share. Oh,
Welcome back, everybody. Sorry if that was rushed for anybody. Everyone takes a little bit different time. Sometimes it goes really deep, sometimes it's super quick. But I hope you stay connected and take the opportunity to continue this discussion with each other if there's stuff left to cover. All right. How was that for everybody? If you care to share, enter the chat what your value was that you surfaced as your starting point for your vision statement. Recognition, hell yeah, trustworthiness. Pleasure. Oh, Aishwarya, this is like, talk about a radical act, right? There's actually a book that I read or that I picked up last year by a queer woman of color about pleasure activism, about how to not burn out as a as a person who's taking political action, during that crazy, during this period where we're being called to take so much action, and really how pleasure is one of the most radical acts that we can take, especially as people socialize as women. All right, so beautiful work, guys. And here's your homework, right? You've got this sentence now that is the first sentence that, just like those vision statements that we reviewed earlier, you've begun this process. You've started. You've done the hard part now. The homework, of course, is to look at a couple other core values that you have, and the things that you like doing, right? Kind of go through those steps that we covered just earlier, and continue this process. Just rinse and repeat for the other values, and making sure that your talents and activities you enjoy are reflected as well. That's the process. That's it. So here's the sort of the saying. I didn't make this up. I forget who it's accredited to. That hopefully will make this process feel a little bit easier for you. A lot of our anxiety, a lot of our angst comes from this belief that we have to have literally everything figured out for our whole life, and that there's a right and a wrong answer in the short term to get us to that place, right? In the end, no one knows what's gonna fucking happen at all, right? And yet, the pleasure and the solace and the relaxation that we can find in spite of that ambiguity is really well summed up here. The headlights only illuminate a few yards in front of us when we're on a road trip, but somehow you make the whole journey that way. See if you can let that in, right? With this North Star, you get pointed in a direction, but there's multiple ways to get from the West Coast to the East Coast. And all of them are just basically 1 mile at a time. So how are you going to break through these things? Some of you already have, right? Really, really easy to do in community. That is why people decide to join Fearless Femmes. I told you that at the beginning, that I would tell you how to get more help if you wanted it. If that's you, if you want to be in a similarly values-aligned, warm, supportive community, just like you were in your breakout session, so that you can finish this process, right? Address the underlying issues, the trauma, the self-sabotage, the inner criticism that's keeping you from authoring this vision statement. Oh, the physiological effects of burnout, not knowing what you like, right? Not being able to own what you like. If you want the support of a community like you just got a taste of today, then Fearless Femmes might be a really, really, really strategic decision for you. We will go through the process of finishing this vision statement for you, addressing your goals, and over the course of 6 months together, you will achieve them. We specialize in getting a raise and a promotion in the group, and the group of women, mostly product leaders and non-binary people who are product leaders, is just, it's an absolutely beautiful community to be a part of and like have as your context, your coaching context. So if you become a Fearless Femme, you will get a promotion and a raise in 6 months with the support of an amazing community. We do that by the way of also addressing your underlying issues with confidence, underlying issues with executive presence, influence, and creative collaboration. and we will design you a values-aligned career. So actually, if you're interested in learning more about this, if you're like, you've been with me for a while, you get my emails and newsletter and you're like, oh my God, Becca, I'm finally ready to do this. You can just skip straight to joining and use this link. So calendly.com/BeccaCamp/strategy session. But if you want more information, if you want the sort of official invitation where you can learn a little bit more about the program and read up about it and then decide whether you want to join, I want you to say invite me in the chat. Invite me, invite me. Invite me. I was like, no one wants to get invited this round. That's never happened before. Awesome, beautiful. I am so happy to know all of you. I know that we're at time, so you've gotten all the value anyway. If you need to drop off, no problem. But please reach out. Please check out my website. Get on my newsletter. I write weekly. That tends to be pretty awesome, impactful stuff. Like not unlike what you just saw today. It's a great way to stay in touch. And I will invite all of you who've requested it with a some just the logistics of the program, and you can really understand how we on a deeper level how we get people these results. So feel free to ping me anytime. I would love to connect with any of you in whatever way you're most excited about. And I'm so happy to know you. Get these vision statements done, guys. And if you need help, just please reach out. It's worth it. All right. Thank you, everyone. There we go. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I hope to see all of you soon.